I'm not training my own algorithm or anything like that.
And that's a lot of, the enjoyment of the creative process.
Yeah, it would be nice to socialize as well. Go visit.
Hello.
Hi.
Today the visit is in the studio/home of Joonas Hyvönen. And Joonas is a Helsinki-based artist.
Yeah.
Who usually does video and animation.
Yes.
And you can tell us more.
Well, it's a home/studio, more like a home with a tiny sprinkle of a studio on top of it, maybe. I do mostly like digital-based art, animation and films, but also sometimes more physical stuff like prints and maybe like kind of installations around the screen. So but
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I work in the corner of our living room, so I haven't been able to do that kind of side of the practice that much lately, but
we'll talk about your practice, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Did you always know that you would be an artist, or how did you end up being one?
No, I think as a kid I was at some point interested in like writing, for example, but not that I necessarily saw it as a future career or anything, but yeah, I think there was a point when I was like 10 or 12 or that sort of age. I was more interested in writing. I've been drawing, like doing drawings as a hobby most of my life. I think I was, as a kid, like my parents encouraged me to like engage in these kind of stuff like painting and drawing, not like any kind of a push into visual arts necessarily, but just like being creative as a hobby. I've been doing that kind of stuff.
And did they say oops when you went professionally towards?
I think they totally went like oops, that was a mistake. And now they're even more terrified when I studied painting originally. I think that was like a bit easier to take than me moving on to making stuff on the computer, like just films and that kind of stuff.
But now that they saw that it works for you, they must be like calm already, or not yet?
Well, it's always a kind of a precarious situation, even when it kind of works for me. So yeah, I think they have adjusted to the fact that I'm a visual artist.
So you went to the art academy here in Helsinki?
Yes, I studied here in the Fine Arts Academy here in Helsinki. Before that, I went to this, I'm not sure what it's called in English actually, like an opisto. It's like an educational institution. It doesn't give you like a degree or anything.
Is it the one year study thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Orivesi, and I think that was the place that kind of helped clear to me that actually like studying and working as a visual artist, like a fine artist, is even a possibility.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
There has to be like some event in your life or a person who can assure you that this can happen.
Yeah.
But how did you transfer from painting to digital media? That's something I don't think many painters do.
Yeah, well, I did my bachelor in painting, and I think when I got to the academy it was, well, I was still quite young and wasn't that like set on what my own practice is, so I was just kind of like experimenting in all kinds of stuff, and and got easily into different kind of things that I was studying there. Like there was a point when I got really into just like reading theory a lot of theory, and I guess this kind of a thing happens easily to many in art studies, that if you come in sort of not that knowledgeable and then can get kind of blown away with some of the stuff and get super into it, and
that's
then
the whole point of education.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, and then make like really bad illustrative art about the that particular theory that you really got into at the time. But yeah, I was like changing the kind of stuff that I would do in painting as well throughout those 3 years that I spent there. And then I was, I don't know, maybe it's like sort of challenging the notion of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve. And after my, well, in like the last year of doing my bachelor, I was already kind of, well, I got this idea that maybe I want to change to another department, and I actually changed to sculpture, just because I thought that the teachers there and maybe just the kind of atmosphere there in the sculpture department at that time was something that maybe like felt interesting to me, sort of fresh and loose and kind of relaxed in some ways. And so I went to sculpture and ended up doing stuff on the computer.
Well, it's kind of a virtual sculpture.
Yeah.
Because you work in 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah, your videos are not like a drawn animation or like a flat.
Yeah. Actually in like last year of studies in the Fine Arts Academy, I went to this course about 3D modeling and animation that kind of taught the basics, kind of learned to understand the software there, so it's not that intimidating, because the 3D software can be kind of intimidating when you just get into it, and there's so much stuff in it that it's hard to get started. So I kind of got over that hurdle in that course, and then it just, I don't know, it somehow, I guess it kind of clicked that I was able to do with the 3D animation many things that I wouldn't be able to achieve with, for example, doing more like traditional film, because of money and because you can do like all kinds of crazy stuff on the computer.
Yeah. Still, from the painting sculpture to moving image, it's a bit of a jump also. Yeah.
I think I've always, like I mentioned, the interest in becoming a writer as a small kid. I think I've been interested in like narratives, and I guess that showed also in some of the paintings I used to do. Not that I was necessarily thinking of stories, for example, with the paintings, but there was like a spell when I used to do like really abstract stuff as well. But before that, I did some paintings where there was always like some kind of a thing going on, like something's happening. So there's maybe like a bit of a narrative always there as well. So I guess that maybe that kind of a thinking was already there. So
yeah, that makes more sense. What are you doing at the moment?
Taking care of my kid.
Yes, you said you have a pretty small young child. So
yeah, I have a 1.5-year-old daughter. So she takes up a lot of my time.
That's a forever sculpture.
Nice. Yeah.
In a way.
Yes.
I have spoken with previously with some artists who are also parents, and maybe touched a little bit the topic of how difficult juggling these things is.
Yeah.
I guess especially when they're so young.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, that's
well,
temporary.
I think the first year was kind of easy, like mixing, working with my practice and taking care, because then they're still so small that it's easier to find the breaks to also work on your own stuff. Of course, it's gonna be kind of like the day is gonna be broken into like smaller bits where you escape to your computer and get to work a bit, but it was easier to arrange. But now that she's very mobile and active all the time and super interested in everything and doesn't sleep as much, maybe it's a bit more difficult to arrange that time for working. Like, typically I start working, well, I can do a bit of work while she naps during the day, which might be like 45 minutes, and then when she goes to bed, like 7:30 or something, I spend the evenings working then.
And by working you mean another type of work and not your practice? Or
well, my practice, yeah.
Also,
yeah.
Any kind, yeah. Yeah, I guess, this is gonna be for a while, but then you'll start going to kindergarten and
yeah.
I have heard that you would get a little more time.
I think that's how it works, yeah.
About your own practice, what are the main themes in it? What are those narratives about?
I think I usually find myself working around some kind of thematic that deals with digitalization or kind of digital themes at large, like from a very like subjective point of view, kind of like
digitalization. Is it connected to the physical and digital, or just separately digital problems? Not problems, things.
Well, yeah, issues. I guess often when I'm interested in something, it's also something that isn't necessarily a problem, but might also include something that, a topic that could also be a problematic, at least from some point of view. And I think a lot of my practice, the thematics are about being intrigued by these sort of issues and trying to think about them creatively, so that I'm not necessarily looking for answers, but just kind of want to maybe, for example, find some like untypical kind of an insight into those issues that might be different from like the mainstream kind of a view.
Right. Yeah, for example, the first time I got to know about your work was last year in the Nuoret exhibition, which you had your installation there in Taidehalli. What was that work about?
That work was Sematectonia, which is a film about ants. It's a film that sort of considers online spaces as these environments where humans interact with the environment and each other stigmergically, which is a term derived from biology that describes how ants interact with each other through the environment. So leaving like pheromone trails, but also making like physical alterations into the environment that then sort of guides the other ants, and it's like a system that keeps on changing and sort of evolving upon itself. And yeah, in Sematectony I was interested in thinking about online spaces in a similar way, but with the small change that the environment isn't seen as just like a passive message bearer, but something that also has its own active.
But by online spaces, do you mean like social media type of communication spaces?
Yes.
I mean, I was impressed by that work. How also just visually it was super polished in a way. Like I could see how much work there has been put into it.
Yeah.
In a way, how long does it usually take for some project that you work on to complete?
It depends. Sematectony was done in like 6 months. That includes also writing the script. Well, I already had a pretty clear idea of what it was gonna be, but yeah, like writing the script, creating the 3D environments and characters and so on. I've been working with sort of the same character model for a while now, so I haven't had to redo that, which takes away a lot of the work or helps. But yeah, it is a lot of work.
Do you take like a classical movie making approach? Like, do you, apart from the script, make some sort of storyboard?
Typically no, because I've been working by myself, and to start with, when I was still like just a couple of years ago, I was super lazy about even writing the script. So I think it's been a step forward that these days I do write a script before I start doing like the other sides of the work, like animating and so on. But no, I typically already have like a really clear sort of visualization what the different scenes are gonna be like the visual images. I can already sort of just imagine them, and I guess it's felt sort of redundant to also do like.
Yeah, I guess of course if you do everything by yourself, there's not that much point into that.
Yeah.
Unless it's some very long piece, but
yeah.
How long was this one?
It's 15 minutes.
15. Well, it's still for like, there are shorter videos up there.
Yeah.
I think all the videos that I have done are shorter than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And surely I never had a storyboard either.
It could be good practice, sort of just iterating on the idea, but yeah, I haven't done it.
Yeah, well,
maybe next time you'll see a new and
evolving
improved
process anyway.
Yeah.
So, have you completely left the physical part of working?
No, I don't think so. Well, there's practical reasons at the moment that I haven't been able to really do the physical side, but yeah, it also depends on the project, I guess. Yeah. I'm in no way opposed to making physical stuff again. Like just last month was maybe actually the first time that I've, since kind of quitting painting, that I felt like maybe I should paint again.
Yeah, don't you miss like doing something with the hands somehow? Because I have that.
Yeah.
I come from porcelain and glass as my bachelor degree, and then I went to photography, and then I went to new media, and it became less and less physical.
Yeah.
Somehow, and then I know I catch myself that when I work on some video for too long, then I'm like, oh, I need to do something with my hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I do get that. Not necessarily that I need to put it into my artistic practice, where it can, I can sort of put that, what to call it, energy, that kind of a need into something else to build. But yeah, it's super nice to build stuff with your hands. Well, you kind of get to see the results very immediately compared to something that I do on the computer.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you don't have to put everything in your practice, of course. How do you choose where to focus your artistic practice? Like, do you consciously leave many things out for like this certain direction, or how's it go?
Well, I have a list of ideas at the moment that I'm kind of like trying to get through at some point. And I think a lot of what defines what gets done is what kind of just like practically gets to happen, like what gets grants and exhibition opportunities.
Yeah.
And well, I think that question could also be answered partially with sort of like an editing process that wasn't necessarily a part of my work earlier. As I said, I was really like lazy writing scripts or anything, so then I just went on and did stuff. Nowadays I do try to write a kind of like not a restrictive script in a way. I still want to leave room for like developing the work further while I make the animation as well, but there is like an editing process while I write the script. I typically do at least a couple iterations of it, so it changes a bit, or I might add something. And I think, yeah, that's sort of like a part of the work where I also focus more on like a certain direction of what I want to do in terms of what I want to experiment on in terms of the animation, but also like the story.
Do you have some specific set of routines of how you get to work? Not right now in the moment. Let's put that as an exceptional situation. But like before that.
Not really.
No, you just sit and work.
Yeah, I try to, at least. Yeah.
And yeah, you said you leave some space for things to develop by themselves. Not like everything is set in stone before you start developing them.
That goes for pretty much all the different aspects of the work, that I let it kind of live as it goes in a way. Also, the script writing is something that I try to do in a way that it's not like, the writing isn't like stream of thought. It's more rigid in a way, more set.
Like different fragments that you kind of...
Well, sometimes I write in fragments, other times it's more sort of direct and yeah, sort of direct. But yeah, I think I allow for room for different ideas to just also come into play while writing. Like maybe I get an idea of involving something, or I have another idea that I've written somewhere down, and I typically look at those while I write and see if something could fit into the story. Like I have this like kind of an overarching thematic that I want to discuss in a way, but then I bring in something else and see what happens with that kind of like mixture, and kind of let the story go where it ends up going, rather than trying to just too heavily illustrate like an original idea, or like this is the issue.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with illustration as a thing in itself, but of course, if you're doing some other type of art, it's usually there is this danger zone of sliding too much towards the illustration. I have noticed that also about my work.
Yeah.
That's not that it goes there, but that it might.
Yeah.
Do you involve somehow other people in, like, You said you work alone, but maybe in other parts of the whole process, your family, your friends, somehow?
It depends on the project. Like I have some projects that I'm doing with other people, like very concretely a shared artwork, but with more like my own pieces. Well, sometimes Amanda, my spouse, reads some of the scripts. She usually doesn't comment too much, but not really. I think like the editing process there is also just me rereading it and reiterating on it rather than involving other people. That I guess just sort of happened to be that way, not that it's necessarily a good thing.
So would you if you could?
Yeah.
Then probably you would need to do a storyboard.
Yeah.
So what's more fun, to work with other people on some common project or to work on your own stuff?
It's hard to compare. Maybe maybe collaborative work actually in a way can be more fun. I think it can offer more fun engagement, at least in the work. Because it is always interesting to share thought with someone else as well.
Have you worked in a space with more people around, or have you?
Like having a studio with,
yeah.
I had a studio spot, like a table spot with the Kunstventures company that rents AV equipment here in Helsinki. And well, I think they've sort of partially ended there. Whatever, like they're not working, really. Not really working anymore. Like it was two guys who also have their own artistic practices. So I think those have sort of taken over,
right? Taking
care of the business side. But
table spot. So you were in one room with them, or did you have a separate kind of?
No, in one room with quite often there was just one other person there. But at times when they had something, like they helped, they also helped with some like audiovisual work productions. So at times it could be that there's like a whole team working on something and I'm in the corner like doing my own thing.
Oh wow, can you focus that way? Or is it so?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good at like shutting stuff out as well. Times. Well, it depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Have you ever had this creative block that in some moment you find it hard to do stuff, to work on your project?
Yeah, I can't really think of a time of a very like concrete block right now, but I think especially with writing that happens. So yeah, I think writing is something that I sometimes need to force myself to do in a way more than the more sort of like a visual side of working. I think I can always sort of get something going when I'm doing like animation or working with the 3D, but sometimes writing is something that I sort of in a way need to force myself into. Like if I can't get anything done, I try to make up some like writing exercises in a way that I can then maybe wow into the project that I'm actually trying to do.
Have you taught yourself these little tricks of how to get into, or have you taken some course for writing or something? Because I mean, for visual arts, I don't know how it is in the academy, but during my studies we didn't really have a proper writing class, and I always struggle with writing. Writing is just the most difficult thing for me.
Now I've kind of thought them to myself. I didn't take any classes, but I should probably. I mean, I think sort of building that kind of practice has become more important in a way as I go. Like some projects have gotten bigger and bigger, and also life kind of goes on, so it's been more important to also work on the structure of how I work as well, to make it more maybe efficient in a way, though maybe that's not the correct word there, but
like organized.
Well, yeah, I think I've always been kind of organized, but yeah, I think, well, maybe efficient is a good way to describe it, so it's not just kind of like sort of sprawling everywhere. But and that goes also for like the 3D. I've sort of like self-taught myself that most of the 3D stuff as well, but I have taken some more professional 3D courses about animation as well in like recent years to definitely like sort of streamline that process. So that's more in a way professional, and that has helped massively with, for example, the Sematectonia project, which I couldn't have animated in that time if I still worked on animation the way I worked like maybe 3 years ago.
Do you give yourself the deadline of when it needs to be done? Or is it somehow otherwise? Or is it set by like an exhibition or something?
Well, yeah, the past couple of years I've worked on projects that have already kind of had deadlines with exhibitions or something else, so the deadline has kind of been set. I don't think it's been more typical that, well, it hasn't often happened that I set myself. I might set some like kind of like midway goals in a way, especially when the project is bigger, so I know that I need to be at least at a certain point to have animated a certain amount of scenes to be able to finish at a time. But yeah, the last couple of years I've worked on projects that have been for a specific exhibition or something, so they have had like very concrete deadlines. But at the moment I'm trying to go more towards the kind of a, I don't know, maybe you could call it the studio practice in a way that of like a painter might just work on a set of paintings without it being so rigidly set for a certain exhibition, for example. So I'm trying to do some more kind of less time-consuming projects as well, that are kind of easier to finish and sort of just try different stuff out.
Yeah, and that's a lot of, you know, the enjoyment of the creative process.
Yeah,
to try different stuff out.
Yeah,
even if some of it doesn't work in the end. How do you sustain your practice? Like, do you have a job?
Yes, I do. I work in customer service. Well, yeah, I've had the same job for like 5 years now in Taidehalli, Helsinki Taidehalli, the Kunsthalle here in Helsinki, which has been nice. I still get to like work kind of in the field of arts in a way. I get to see all the exhibitions there.
Which is a pretty good perk, I have to say. I don't see all the exhibitions in Taidehalli, but...
Who does?
Well, you do.
Well, yeah, I do. And my colleagues there. It's been a great job for me, also in the sense that it's been really sort of...
Maybe it's flexible then.
That's the word, yeah. I mean, really flexible with kind of the working hours, for example. Well, the working day is of course set, but it's been very easy to also for me to define, not just for them when they need me, but also for me to define kind of when I need more work from them. For example, if I don't get a grant or anything and need more of an income from there, it's been easy to communicate with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the best options for an artist to have as a job when you need a job, to work at a museum or like a bigger gallery like that.
Yeah, doesn't have the highest pay, but
yeah, but do you have to guide people or like talk about the art to the visitors sometimes? Or?
Well, no, I'm not working as a guide. Of course, people might come and ask some things, so it's good to be knowledgeable at least to a certain point about the exhibitions rather than being totally ignorant. But no, I work either just like guarding the exhibition, or you might find me at the cashier. I also besides that, I also do 3D work sometimes, like freelancing.
We met some time ago at this event that Avearki was organizing, as we're both members of Avearki. And very briefly, I think we talked something about AI, and you said that you are kind of trying to use AI for some project. Like how do you use it for that?
Yeah, I've been kind of mixing 3D animation with AI, or doing stuff with AI that I then sort of bring into 3D animation, kind of for creating environments. It's one of these works that I'm now doing that I mentioned that are kind of a bit more low effort in a way, and just trying to maybe do something experimental that's more focused on also like the medium itself of 3D animation, but also AI in a way. But it's kind of a in terms of AI, not like very high-end or super smart stuff, just kind of using...
It's more A than I.
Well, it's AI, but sort of like very what's available for pretty much anybody. It's kind of like a customer level, not like really trying to do something that experimental with like coding, for example, or like developing.
You're not training your own
I'm not
algorithm.
training my own algorithm or anything like that. So, but yeah, more focused on what I can do with that in terms of 3D animation to maybe.
Was it just like a curiosity to test to see if you can use that as a tool, or?
Originally, yeah, I was just kind of curious about seeing what you can do, and now it's more sort of, I got some ideas from trying it out, and now it's more focused in a way. So I already kind of know what I want to do with it and what I want to try and achieve. But yeah, I don't know if I want to describe the technical process too much, since it's like still like an ongoing thing. I want to keep it a secret.
Sure. Do you think you in the future use it more and more in your practice, or is it now in this specific project?
Well, I'm doing two things with it now, and I think I will continue using it, at least on some level.
What is the state at the moment of this for animation or for 3D?
Well,
because for illustration, it's completely blown people out of work.
I don't think it's there with animation yet, but yeah, it's obviously getting kind of better and better. And I sort of enjoy it at the level where it's still being the way it still makes some like mistakes, and that's maybe more interesting to me than kind of like a perfect animation or perfect illustrations. I think where it kind of shows that it's AI is more interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's, for me it sounds very natural, because of course, you know, as an artist you don't want perfection.
Yeah.
Well, maybe some people want perfection, but yeah, I shouldn't generalize so much. Like
yeah,
that.
well, I guess it depends on the need of what you do. If you are looking to replace your designer or illustrator with the AI, then you probably want the as perfect as you can get. But working as an artist and using it as a tool, it's more that I'm also interested in investigating it, and if it just brings out these like perfect images, then I don't know, like what's the point? I think it's kind of good fit with the 3D animation, like thinking about 3D animation sort of from the technical side, because 3D animation already sort of simulates everything. That it simulates the camera, it simulates the environment, and like everything is at like the very kind of core of it simulated already. So for example, like AI created
AI is doing the same.
images kind of fit the vibe in a way.
Yeah, true that. Rapid shift of thought now about this space as a general. Have you had? You said you had a table spot somewhere else. Have you had another studio like just by yourself?
Well, during studies, obviously. Well, in the last year, I guess they don't get that anymore in the Fine Arts Academy either. But back in the good days when I studied, the master's students were still given like their own studios. The space might have been small, but still it was your like own. Now I think everybody is kind of in the open. You might get these like space dividers, but
that I remember Alt was also struggling with that.
Yeah.
I mean, not Alt itself, but the students in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of like right after my studies, I got into this residency at the Jan van Eyck Academy in the Netherlands, and had a wonderful studio there for a year.
Year residency, how is that like? It's a pretty long time to, you just get extracted from your previous environment into this other reality.
Yeah. I think it was a bit difficult. Well, you asked about the kind of like a block before, and I think back then I actually sort of, to begin with, had a kind of like a block with creating stuff, because it was kind of, it was a bit hard to get going. I also had like one project that I sort of had in mind when I got there, but that was still sort of like far away, so I didn't feel the pressure of making anything for it yet. So it was a bit hard to get going there at first, but yeah, once I kind of settled in, like the place is great.
I mean, Jan van Eyck is a pretty famous place, so
yeah,
there must be a reason for it.
Yeah. I think they try to, at least back then, I think they tried to bring in people with very sort of varying sort of practices, like really different practices. And they also very actively sort of encourage people to kind of engage with each other, like form kind of groups for projects, but also just like hang out together.
I like a residency, isn't it? Like usually.
Yeah.
Like that. Have you been to other residencies, or do you enjoy being on a residency?
I did. I haven't been to a residency since. Well, I guess the Kunstventures thing was kind of called like a studio residency. So if that counts.
What was that?
Where I had my studio here in Helsinki. It was kind of like a studio residency project for the first like 6 months, I think, and then I just kind of stayed there renting the spot afterwards.
Do you enjoy having your studio at home now? Because you don't have to. You can roll out of bed and into the chair.
It's not usually how that works, but
I mean, in theory.
In theory, yeah.
Or would you rather have some commute?
I think a commute is quite nice. It helps sort of structure the day and also gives time for reflecting on stuff as well on the way. I used to, the studio spot that I used to have was in Roihupelta, so I had like maybe a 10-kilometer bike ride there. So
that's some commute.
Yeah, so it gave some time to.
You can think about all kinds of things on the way.
Yeah, especially during the winter when I still tried to cycle there every.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you now cycle in the winter? Or was it just then?
I still do, but I don't have the studio there anymore, so it's more rare. Yeah.
Oh, when it comes to 0 degrees, I'm like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
I cannot bear lower temperatures on the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, there are bikes and tires and stuff too, specifically designed for winter conditions, but
yeah, I didn't have those.
So you do like a challenge, I guess.
I guess, yeah. Actually, yeah, I do like a challenge. I think that's also something that I do in my practice, that I typically, basically every time that I work on a new project, there's also something new that I'm experimenting in terms of, for example, the 3D. Like I'm trying out something that I haven't like technically done before, for example, or I'm trying with like the narrative design, like storytelling. I'm trying to do or achieve something, another kind of a way of storytelling that I haven't necessarily done before. Like I set those kind of challenges for myself for some reason. It's not that I'm kind of like set on doing that, I guess. It just kind of happens. Maybe it keeps the practice interesting.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was going to say. Because of course, if you start doing exactly the same thing over and over, like, how quickly are you going to get too bored with it?
Yeah.
For the storytelling, do you use some specific storytelling structures, or is it more intuitive how it comes?
It's more intuitive. Sometimes, especially to start with, it's very intuitive. I usually build kind of like mind maps that might then evolve into, I'll try to group some stuff together to sort of like fit scenes that I'll then do for the animation, for example, and then that might already inform in a way what the story structure is going to be. For example, in Sematectonia, it ended up being this, not a loop in a way, but it kind of returns to the beginning in a way, like the scene is set similar to, like the ending scene is set similar to the first scene, and that structure sort of happened already in this like mind mapping stage where it just turned out to be like a circle.
Yeah, I haven't really spent too much attention on storytelling generally, but I'm getting more and more interested in time. Which is maybe a bit of a pity, because in Aalto during my studies there was this storytelling course that everybody was very excited about and recommending and stuff. And back then I was very much against any kind of narrative. And I didn't take that course. And now I'm a bit, should I maybe taken the course?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think I had like a similar point in my studies back when I was still doing painting. at a certain point. And there was a teacher that at a point, if I remember correctly, told me that he'd really like to see me to change to the time and space department for like maybe for like 6 months or something to work on like films or something, because he really saw that I'd be like, he saw this like kind of like a narrative side to my works, I guess, and was really like telling me this. At some point I was like, yeah, no way. That's not happening. I'm doing like totally different stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's a reason why teachers are teachers.
I guess there is a reason, yeah. He had the last laugh.
I usually ask people if they store their work in the studio, but I guess in the case of your work, it's
in a hard drive.
It's a lot easier somehow.
Yeah. Well, I do have some prints and stuff that's stored in the cellar.
I hope the conditions there are okay.
I hope so too.
How many backups do you have of your hard drive?
Like 2 at the moment. Yeah, I've got like 2 external hard drives, and then I have a ton of space also on like the hard drive on my computer. So I think there's been times when I have a copy of some works on both external hard drives on my computer and maybe also like somewhere in the cloud as well. But now I've been trying to keep the computer kind of empty in a way.
It needs to have space to render.
Yeah, yeah. All the animation frames take up a lot of space. I think not Sematectonia, because it was a bit shorter, but I made this like film Escape Character before that, and it was almost like 1 terabyte, like all of the different project files for it.
Whoa. That's a funny thing is you mentioned terabyte. It's when I was in high school, long time ago, we had this course like computer basic skills and knowledge and stuff.
Yeah.
And we had this teacher. He was I think he randomly ended up being a teacher of that because he really was not very suitable for it. And
I think it used to be that way back in the day.
Yeah,
for most cases. Like.
Yeah, and he was a little older already back then. And he was saying, no, he was teaching us about computers and the hard drives and the space and memories and stuff. And he was, yeah, in theory, it is possible to have a terabyte as a thing. Yeah. But in practice, that's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, nowadays I have a hard drive that's 4 terabytes. And that's a very standard thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you have like a square meter of a working spot here? About?
Yeah. That's about it, yeah. Maybe 2.
Maybe 2.
Depends on if you count the computer itself.
Would you want to have more of that, or is this enough?
I definitely want to have more. As much as possible. I mean, this is kind of perfectly fine for like my most sort of like immediate needs in terms of making work with the computer, but of course like a hall
wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, it would make a lot of different things possible.
Yeah.
So it's like constructing stuff, because yeah, it would be nice. Not that I necessarily want to get into making sculpture or painting again, but to have the possibility to also experiment on this, like the installation side of how the audiovisual production is shown.
Yeah. What would be your ideal way to show one of your works?
Again, it kind of depends on the project. Some are more cinematic, like Sematectonia and the Escape Character. I think they are cinematic in the sense that they work well in the cinema, so big screen. But some, I think, well, in gallery spaces I usually prefer a screen over a projection.
Have you had some of your works screened at a festival, for example?
Yes, quite recently Sematectonia was shown in this festival called Video Forms in France, in, I forget the name of the city, Clermont-Ferrand, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Which was a nice experience because we were able to also travel there. We took we had a couple days just like for ourselves in Lyon, and then
lovely.
spent like 2 days in Clermont-Ferrand and got to see Sematectonia also screened there. Like I was able to be present, was really, well, the festival was nicely organized, and it was also like really satisfying to get to see it on a big screen myself, because I hadn't had that opportunity before. Like in Nuoret, the exhibition, for example, it was shown on this quite small screen.
Yeah, sometimes this is with the video works, you know, if you don't have that kind of a whole studio, you can't even see your work larger. Yeah.
I mean, I have a 27-inch monitor, so it's a bit different from watching it from a canvas.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Do you go to exhibitions otherwise?
Yeah. I try to visit kind of as much as I can.
Where do you usually go?
Am I gonna name drop some galleries and then the rest are gonna be like, why doesn't he come here?
Is this the reason? Because I've noticed lately, I ask people, where do you go? Just for my own curiosity to see. And people avoid saying names of galleries. Is this the reason?
I don't know. Maybe.
Huh.
Maybe they're afraid that their kind of like taste will be judged.
No, then I have to put a disclaimer there that, hey, you know, just some mentioned galleries doesn't mean that the other ones are of a lesser quality.
The rest
or something.
were just edited out.
Maybe.
Because of like time pressure. I gotta keep these to a length. I go to, well, we live in Maunola, and it's really easy to get to Malmi from here. So Seek Gallery has become like one that I visit with our child quite often, or like go see every exhibition if I can. But also in the center, I think like Forum Box, Sinne, Anhava. I think those are like the most typical ones that I go see. And also like museum exhibitions as well.
Do you go to the openings, or do you prefer to visit them in another time?
I rarely get a chance to go to the openings, actually.
Well, at least you get to see the works better.
Yeah. I mean, the openings are for socializing, I think, rather than seeing the work. So
yeah.
It would be nice to socialize as well.
One day.
Yeah.
Do you follow some other artists' work, or what would be some other artists that have in some way influenced your work? Name drop again.
Yeah.
No, I do this because I have on the website of the podcast, I have this list where I put what everybody's saying as their kind of inspiration.
Yeah.
So that people can see also other people's sources of inspiration, you know, get to know new artists' names, and that's the thing. It's not like some sort of special pressure that I'm enjoying to see how artists are this.
Yeah, no, I think there's every time the question gets asked, I just like blank out of all the artists that I follow on like Instagram or whatever, or try to follow practices of. There's one artist that I want to say that I completely forget the name of. Well, from sort of like colleagues here in Helsinki, like other work artists that I'm friends or familiar with, Joonas Hyvönen and Reija Meriläinen. Yeah. So, suddenly I'm starting to
to doubt
like doubt everywhere. Like, is that her name?
It's okay. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a colleague. It can be some famous artist or some dead person.
Yeah, is a mayor who does like. This is one of those artists that I've only seen on like Instagram and online, but never been able to see any of the work in person. But who does like 3D renders that are kind of very out there, like sort of super interesting and beautiful and inspiring, even though it's kind of maybe in a different direction of doing 3D than what I do. But
I will check that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it doesn't have to be in the same direction.
No, yeah. No, you can only like the stuff that you also do.
Let's be a mirror.
Yeah.
Are there some other places of inspiration for you?
Yeah, I read a lot and draw inspiration from there. And films as well, while visiting exhibitions, just like, well, I guess we were just talking about the artist. So, but yeah, I also play games a lot, so I think that's a big influence also on what I do and how I think of how I structure some of my works. What games
do you like? Those that have a specific narrative or just the free roaming?
Both, I guess. Would be nice to say that I only enjoy like really cryptic puzzle games that are super like involved in these like complex narratives and so on, but also like really dumb combat games as well. But
I mean, I'm not so much like familiar with the details around games.
yeah.
A fan of Mario Kart.
Yeah.
That's my level.
Yeah.
I used to play Animal Crossing too.
Yeah. I think I enjoy. We already like mentioned challenge at one point, and I think I enjoy games that also challenge me. That I typically play in like kind of like hard difficulty selection. To I don't know. I like the challenge. In
the challenge of having some puzzle to solve, or just difficult to pass the level or something like that?
Both. Can be like, if it's a combat game, then it can be kind of like a combat puzzle, how to get past a certain combat in a way. Like I like something that's very like technical in a way, that it demands kind of a lot from you, from maybe that way, that it can be really fast and demanding on a kind of a technical level, that you have to be able to do a lot of things at the same time, for example, or put stuff together fast or that kind of stuff.
That's interesting. I'm exactly the opposite. If I play a game, I want it to be calm and just like a relaxing entertainment, and not to make me work. Yeah. Somehow. Oh yeah, I guess. I mean, that's the reason why different games exist.
Yeah. I think it's part of it is from just the kind of satisfaction of then getting past it, but it also maybe comes from it demanding like the full focus to that certain task. That it can be, I think it can be relaxing as well, in a way that it totally takes you away from everything else into that thing that you're trying to do.
Immersion.
Yeah.
Have you thought about immersion in your own videos?
Yeah, yes, I have. I don't know if I have anything specific to say about immersion in a way.
Like, would you do a VR experience thing?
I'm making a VR experience thing, or a game actually. It's one of those like shared projects, collaboration thing that I'm doing with Tatu Heinämäki, a fellow artist who's also been helping me with basically like all the stuff that I've made that's using a game engine. Like he's helped with programming or other stuff. And in this project as well, it's a shared project, so we do like the planning and writing and all that together. But then where we kind of separate is that I'm taking more of a responsibility over the visual side, and he takes care of the programming because he's just way more experienced and knowledgeable about that stuff. And
that's still an ongoing project?
That's an ongoing project that's kind of been going on for a couple of years already, from like the initial idea that's just kind of been overshadowed by
life.
Life and like other projects coming, like taking.
Is there like do you have a deadline for that one? When is it going to be ready, or?
No, but now we're trying to focus on it more again, because we both have had like exhibitions and other projects that have taken the time that we haven't been able to focus on it, but now we're trying to get kind of back into it and maybe get something done by next year or so.
I guess I only didn't ask you, do you have some upcoming events or an exhibition or something in the near future?
Another collaborative thing, I'm gonna have an exhibition with Iisa Lepistö in K17, K17 exhibition space in Sipoo. And
when is it gonna happen?
Good question. It's September or October.
So if somebody's watching, they can go and visit.
Yeah, go visit. Like and subscribe.
That as well.
Yeah. Well, it is both September and October.
Okay.
So that's when it's happening.
Cool.
In Sipoo.
In Sipoo.
Yeah.
Great.
Making video work that uses AI, and it's gonna feature like visual stuff from me and text that Iisa is writing. I had the initial idea for back in the day, but then never really got into doing the project. And then because Iisa's been doing a lot of writing and also publishing some of her writing in like magazines and so on, and I read some of those, and well, we knew each other already, so I kind of knew her practice as well. Like reading some of the text that she wrote, it really resonated with like the particular idea that I had, so I asked her if she'd be interested in making something together, and now we're doing it. Nice.
That's how it should be done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this talk.
Thank you.
And September, Sipoo.
Yes.